It recognizes our belief in God, our country, not just individuals, our country, our founding fathers codified this in the documents that founded this country. Our reliance, our belief in God, and our reliance upon God. Of that, there's just no debate on that. You may like it, may not like it. Declaration of Independence, we find these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It goes on in the Constitution to say we are putting together this Constitution in a preamble to secure the blessings, not only for ourselves, for posterity. And that Constitution followed with a Bill of Rights that enumerated those godly rights given to man, including the very first one, which was a right to believe in God and to express that belief anytime, anywhere, including the public square.
33 million. It's proven to the money investors that people want something to feed their souls, not just their worst desires.
Absolutely.
And
yes, indeed.
This kind of sums up my entire dialogue career on the heat of the night. You ready for this? Okay, this is it. My 7 years on the heat of the night. My dialogue all summarized in this. Get right on it, Chief.
Skinner, but Bubba's my name. I like my iced tea sweet and my women the same. I'm your brown-haired badge here in little old Sparta, but nobody's bigger or tougher or smarter. If you're looking to fight, best not be with me. Gonna be held tight, well now we'll just see. You never know in the heat of the night on TNT. Heat of the night on TNT. Now I don't put on any airs, but then I ain't no slob. Just a redneck boy with a blue-collar job. The ladies I date, they gonna have 'em some fun, 'cause I'm a big hunk of crime fighting son of a gun. So if you're looking to fight, come on up in the ring. You wanna be held tight, just about anything can happen in the heat of the night on TNT. Hubba, 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 heat of the night on TNT. Yeah.
It recognizes our belief in.
From NFL quarterback to Hollywood to the mayor's office, and now behind the mic at KXEX, this is the Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So, 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Free at last! Free at last!
You're listening to the Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat. As always, I'm old Alan Autry, still kicking. And so honored and humbled to have you with us today on Thunderous Thursday. And our little engine that could continues to grow. And that's a big thank you to y'all who make that decision every noon to tune in live, whether it be on social media. Appreciate you folks on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and here locally on the old school radio. And folks from Dinuba, big shout out to folks from Dinuba, auto fans from Chowchilla, hometown Riverdale, California. Thank you, all those little towns around Fresno, and of course, my beautiful Fresno, that shining city on the hill that I was so honored to be able to be mayor of for 8 years. I have been looking forward to having a show like this since the day I walked in this studio and agreed to do this show. And the spirit of what I'm talking about is bringing people together that normally in today's world would not come together. That, quite honestly, back in the day, if we narrow this down to politics, because it seems like everybody's divided. This used to be Dodger fans hated Giant fans, Yankee fans hated Met fans hated. Yeah, it was confined to kind of harmless things. But then this downright hate, not just dislike, seeped into other parts of our institutions, and much to the detriment of our country. Politically, back in the day, reaching across the aisle and working with the other party was a prerequisite to get elected in either party. Now you try to do that, they get what you call primary by the far left or far right, depending on the primary. But I have with us today two people that I call, so proud to call friends. To my right, Garry Bredefeld, Councilman Garry Bredefeld here in Fresno. Welcome, Garry.
Thank you very much, Alan.
And to my, ironically, left is Tyler Maxwell, our newest addition to, I think you're the newest addition to City Council. Is it?
Until tomorrow.
Well, yeah, we'll move it forward tomorrow.
I am the freshman council member. Yeah.
Freshman council member, and he's going to be the incoming council president. We'll talk about that. But first of all, you guys, thanks for coming on, because you know as well as I do. Being here together, just being together, you have big differences in terms of policies. What people don't know is you have a lot of things that you work together on, which can't be said, and I'm not picking on this council or this mayor, although I have deep disagreements with how things operate, but I think that's true pretty much around the country. This division of guilty by association, even the most minimal, a handshake, a smile, a photo op with somebody of the other party, tends to either kill you politically or irreparably injure you, where you don't have the people behind you. And somehow, some way, you have it put in you, so I got to thank your mamas and your daddies, that you said, you know what, I'm going to come on this show. We have Tyler, Democrat, staunch Democrat, Garry Bredefeld, staunch Republican. I'm an independent. So we got it covered. We got the real old guy, the kind of old guy. Give you a guess who that old guy is. God, Shannon is old Bubba. You got a face that's worn out, two bodies. I look like Bubba's grandpa now. All right, I get it. Get it all out. I'm dealing with it. Jerry's a psychologist by trade. But we have, they're here. And let me ask you, because you will have a certain segment of your party of which you are members of, Democrat and Republican Party, that are going to be madder than wet hens and wet roosters, and they're going to let you know about it. We're going on this show. Why are you here? Who wants to start first?
I'll start.
Okay.
You mentioned, hopefully, stars align, I come in as council president next year. I don't take that for granted. I've got to earn the votes. First meeting of the year. I recognize that, but the big push for me, as I'm sure a lot of people in the community have seen, is this air hanging over City Hall. We have a very negative light, not just the council, but the entire building. And I think if we want to change the culture at City Hall, I can't wait for Garry to do something. I can't wait for any of my colleagues to make any change. I think that change has to start with us. And I am a proud Democrat. I believe in the policies and values of my party for the most part. But I think we're not going to get anything done if the negative controversy surrounding the building continued to eat up all the headlines, and that's going to require us to work with one another, work with people you wouldn't normally work with, or find opportunities where you agree on something. And to Gary's credit, he's done a really good job reaching out to me these past few months, and we found several issues that we've worked on successfully together, whether that was taking on PG&E, whether that was fighting a 4 a.m. last call, whether that was working to turn some of our ponding basins into parks for some of our most in-need communities. Most of the things going on in the city, I think Garry and I actually agree on. Sometimes we disagree on how to get to the end result, but I think the end result that we want is the same.
Gary?
Well, I would agree with that. I think this incoming year will be, will be very different. There's a change on the council. You have Annalisa Perea coming in, who I know wants to do very good things, is not interested in some, the backroom politics of it.
I hate the labels, Gary, but everybody labels everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to put a label on her, would you label her moderate in her politics?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, we'll see.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
She's definitely left of where I'm at, but it isn't always about whether you're a Democrat or Republican. It is about relationships, and politics, as you well know, Alan, are about relationships that you have with people, and being able to trust people, respect their differences. I think if there's anything that's gone on at City Hall, that's been lacking around where there's a lack of respect for the differences, and I think that's going to change. I think the change in personnel, I think with Tyler coming in as council president and his commitment to moving things forward in a positive way, I think is going to make a big difference. I think we're going to see the next 2 years, my latter 2 years on the council, very different than the first 6.
Okay. You mentioned, Tyler, that the council has gotten criticism.
Yep.
And the mayor, excuse me. I don't have a cough button here, folks. Sorry to do that in your ear. I got no choice. I like the old man. Yeah. You said the perception here in Fresno is that the council
is dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional, yep. And to a certain degree, some people think the mayor's office is dysfunctional. They try to lay it over on the council. Let me ask you, how warranted is that description on the public?
Partially accurate. I would say for the 10 things that we do every week.
That nobody sees.
That nobody sees. The 9 good things that we do never get publicized. People don't realize the good programs that we have going on. If that one bad thing that we do that week, whether it's beating each other up or being disrespectful to each other personally, if those take the headlines, people don't know about all the good work going on in the building. So it's partially warranted because we do it to ourselves, but at the same time, there is more good work than nonsense going on in that building. There really is.
Gary, warranted? Because there is that. I mean, in every sector of the city.
Yeah. I don't see the council as dysfunctional in the sense that they don't function. I mean, we get things done. The council's gotten lots done. They've dealt with the issues around homelessness in ways that I think most councils have not. I think there's been some success with that. I think we've come together as we've supported our police department, gave them the best contract in the valley, which was very important in terms of fairness and in terms of drawing police officers there. But I don't think it's dysfunctional. I think what happens is there are certain things that take place that, for example, I disagree with, that I've been very public about, and people can label that dysfunctional if they want, but I think it's just about...
Well,
go ahead.
Let me clarify.
Yeah.
I don't think we are dysfunctional. I think that is the perception by a lot of people.
Well, that's a perception, and I think also it's something, the media focuses on.
Absolutely.
They focus on the conflicts, and I understand that.
That's what gets the headlines.
That's what gets the headlines. Yeah. It is what it is.
Exactly. In the writing profession, especially in screenwriting, but it's true with novels. They said the key to drama is conflict. You have to have conflict to create drama. And are we not a country that just feeds on drama?
We are.
Because you go around the country, I've found very few situations. It used to be Clovis was an exception. Look how Clovis, the city council, gets along. Look how the board of supervisors. They're starting to show some cracks in there as well. It seems like a nationwide
bickering contest that gets the headlines. Because the media, I guarantee you, and I don't mean to pick on the Fresno Bee, but it's our local media, and I think it's probably emblematic of most media around the country that cover local politics. They would have little to zero interest in covering this show that Garry Bredefeld and Tyler Maxwell decided to sit down and talk about the whole issues. And by the way, neither one of these guys got notes. Tyler didn't say, he says, I'd like to talk about something substantive, but he didn't say, hey, don't, here's what you have to ask me, or I'm not going to go there. Yada, yada. He said, I prefer to talk about positive things. I said, absolutely. I'll ask the hard questions, but they won't play gotcha. I'm going to live up to that. And Gary's here, and it is newsworthy, and people do want to see that. So I'm at this question, could there be a disconnect? I believe so, between the media understanding what people want, that they would be excited about seeing councilmen work together, councilwomen, councilpersons, whatever you want to refer to them as. Do you think, because the media is very powerful, and the perception is really that trumps truth just about every time, the perception. So how big a part do you think the media has played in stoking this idea of dysfunction by just constantly highlighting the bickering? And for example, I see the news feed today. Terry Sladdick's parting shots. He lost the election. I like Terry, but I don't agree with a lot of his methods, but some that I do, and this and that. But Terry Sladdick's going to leave awesome bombs at the superintendent. Why cover that? That's front page. You got a new person coming in. Why do you highlight the fact that the guy that's going out is hurling these insults and
not the prospects of the new person coming in?
So again, the long-winded question is, how big of a factor is the media in this, and can the perception of dysfunction ever turn around in any city, in any county, unless the media starts being more responsible in how they cover things?
I think everybody is complicit in the political health of our community. People tend to think of the local government when they think of political health, and that is a big part of where conversations begin or certain political climate begins. But really, we're all complicit. People want a better political climate, better political health for our community. That's not just on the 7 of us at City Hall, right? I mean, it takes folks getting involved in the community. It takes media covering not just the bad, not just the super controversial, but also all the good things that we're doing too. Like I said, out of the 10 things we do a week, that one bad thing might get.
That's going to be the front page.
So, in all fairness, we do it to ourselves, but at the same time, hey, we also did 9 other really good things that I think people in our city ought to know about.
Yeah, and there can be a balance there. I get it. You're trying to sell newspapers. It used to be newspaper. You're selling media. You're selling clicks. You're selling whatever it is now. But there is, back in the day, Gary, I can remember a day where it's always been that way. There was a fellow that worked at B, Charlie Waters, God rest his soul. We became good friends. But I was told by, and I won't reveal the name, it still works around, both know him, worked at the B during that time, and they had a meeting, and they said, Autry, the motto was, if it bleeds, it leads at Fresno B. We brought all the writers there and said, if it bleeds, it leads, and Autry's not bleeding enough, so we have to make him bleed.
Well,
and I thank goodness for my deep throat in there who came out and told me that, so I saw it coming.
Right.
So I was able to respond to it. But Gary, I'll ask you this: how do you navigate that? You go out and you do your press conferences because this is what I believe. I want people to know what I believe. Support me or not support me. You got to know where I stand. And you do a press conference. Sometimes it's covered. Sometimes it's somebody with a little camera, personal camera. Mm-hmm. How do you get your message out that you're giving on this show that, hey, we're doing some stuff down there, and we're not looking for a pat on the back and a parade, yay, Counsil. We're just asking you to look and consider this stuff so you might not get your dauber so far down in this city. We need to be more positive. Goodness gracious, Fresno has enough coming at it. The state, we're not on the state's radar screen in terms of helping us with our abject poverty, our schools that don't work, our water issues.
Well, I think, Alan, you're wanting something that you're never going to get.
Well, thanks for that, Gary.
I think it's the truth. The Fresno Bee is
I know what you're saying.
Focused on all the negative, whether it's the city council or not. I mean, they talk about race. They talk about things that divide the city. They are a left-wing, progressive paper. They can't be hidden anymore. And they have a journalist who's really an activist masquerading as a columnist who attacks people on the right, doesn't attack people on the left. And this is what the media is across the country, if we're being honest about it. And it's the same thing with big tech, and we've seen it. So from my perspective, I don't try to win them over. I just speak what I believe, and I will post it, and I will say it in a press conference, and they will do what they're going to do.
Yeah, Gary, I'm not saying that you could win them over. I'm not saying that. But is it possible to have some semblance of fair reporting, Tyler, that you give both sides without editorializing in your articles? Back in the day, you had reporting of the news was a portion of the newspaper. You had the sports page, the business page, and the editorial page. You wanted opinion, Fresno Bee would give. In fact, I had 2 hit pieces on me. The only mayoral candidate ever in the 1 week leading up to the election had 2 huge hit pieces on him saying why I should not be the mayor. But can we hold out a little hope? And I'm basing it on this. And Jerry, hold on to your seat here, because I part of me is really with you, but I'm an eternal optimist. I can't help that. I thank God for that. I mean, I made a living in Hollywood for 30 years with this face. I got to be I'm an eternal optimist.
Well, that's also miracles.
It's a miracles. I believe in miracles. Absolutely. I'm in my 15th miracle. But I was watching CNN last night, the Aaron Burnett show. Okay? Far left, right? Yep. I mean, far left as you can get. But there's a new stockholders at CNN that have said, we want to come back to the CNN of old that can be trusted, that covered the first Iraq war. That's where they got their name. They covered it. And they used to have a semblance when Ted Turner first took over.
Right.
Was somewhat, always left, because Turner was always left. But I saw Aaron Burnett actually grilling an individual, I forget his name, but he's somebody in the know, or she wouldn't have had on the show, about the FBI's complicity, if that's such a word, with the Hunter Biden laptop. That the FBI had to know it was legit. Why didn't they come forward? Why did they suppress the story at New York Post? This guy, she asked a question. The guy kind of mealing around like they normally do. And if you're on Jake Tapper, Anderson Cooper, whatever, they're on to the next question. You're suddenly going, please go a little further. Don't let them off the hook. She didn't. She kept asking and asking. Now, if I'm seeing an individual who's changed, no, I'm seeing an individual, I don't think, her philosophy. I'm seeing a person that wants to keep their job. You haven't seen Chris Cuomo, gone. You have the big purge at CNN. And I don't care how you get fair reporting, whether you do it from your heart because you think it's right or you're scared you're going to lose your job. Just report fair and dig deep on both parties. What's your thought on that? And the question is, can we hold out some hope for the media to at least do a semblance of fair reporting?
Yeah, I hear you, Mayor.
Because they do lock this guy out. No, they don't want to cover you at all. I mean, let's just lay it on the table.
Well, I disagree a little bit.
Okay, no, that's what this is about, Tyler.
They've covered me.
I disagree with both of you.
Well, see, you have unity. Look at that. You agree against the independent. That's what
I
putting that on
disagree
the
with
agree
both
list.
of you to an extent. I
go
do
ahead.
think that the Fresno Bee is a reputable news source. I read them every single day.
Oh, I do too.
I rely on them for balanced news. I don't always agree with what they say. A lot of the controversial stuff that we read comes from opinion pieces, right? I think every time Garry has held a press conference, the Fresno Bee and other news outlets have always made an effort to cover every single story or press conference. I don't think they've ever done anything malicious to not show up. Now, that being said, would I like to see more good, positive stories on top of the fold of the newspaper instead of on the bottom half, instead of vice versa? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I can't control what the Fresno Bee does. I can only control what I do. And so part of my mission next year is try to give them more good stories to cover. That's all I could do on my part.
And urge them to cover them.
And hope that they cover the good as much as the bad.
Well, one of the first things I did as mayor had a media summit at City Hall. Had them all there. Fresno Bee, all the networks. And, no, I think we had it at City Hall. And to their credit, they all showed up. I said, listen, I want to be, if you have a problem with me, go ahead and write it, go ahead and show it on television, that's fine. I just ask you, just for the betterment of the people, try not to ambush. Not that I couldn't tell you something, but I probably wouldn't be prepared to be able to tell you the substance that you're looking for. That's the only reason you want to run down. I mean, if you really want to report, let me know you want to have an interview, and I'll never turn you down, whether you agree with me or not. And then I opened it up. We're about 2.5 hours. They didn't like that. Now, and I don't want to be a broad swat. Some of them did. They came up and said, thank you. But I could read the room. You learn to read the room a little bit. You go to enough screenings where your movie sucks. You see the body language of the screening. No, okay. But, you know, a lot of them did not want that. They wanted somebody that would run, that they had to go corner, that they had to go catch, especially if it was some party that they didn't agree with. And that's what I'm asking is there any attempt there to go to the media and say, hey, look, let's all get together. Let's air it out. Let's air it out in the room. How can we better serve the people? Because information is king. See, Fresno B, you hate disinformation. You think it's the biggest threat to democracy, and it could very well be. Can't we limit locally the level of disinformation we have? Is that an option that it could be a closer led by the council and the mayor? Because then I think it puts the ball in their court.
You're an optimist. I'm a pragmatist. Twitter unveiled all of the files that they had. It was big news. The Fresno Bee reported nothing. There's nothing there. So the reality is they are a biased organization, as many media are, and I hold no illusions that's going to change, Alan. I think you can sit down, you can hold a media summit, you can do whatever you want to do, but the bias is the bias, and it hasn't changed.
But Gary, is there value in Tyler? Both wins. Is there value? I know to me, as a citizen, and when I was mayor, I always pointed this out. Look, I'm going to be a citizen a hell of a lot longer. This is my town. I love my community. So I make every decision through that prism. How is this going to affect me and my family and the families as a citizen? And I always had an affinity for the politician, right or left, that said, look, I tried everything to have a relationship with this entity or this individual. And it just didn't work. But my door's always open. And I went, I like those people that say, I'd like to, somebody who's been beat up by the media said, listen, I've tried to have a summit with them, to talk with them. I've invited them into my office. I continue to be in my office. They simply won't show up. They won't show up. And I'm trying to have a better relationship because I know they're one conduit for your information. Certainly with social media and Twitter, as you mentioned, and everything, their Instagram, it's only one of many. It used to be the only game in town.
Yeah.
That was my saying. Is there any, I think there's extreme value, really substantive value. Somebody's saying there, even though the odds were I was going to beat my head in the wall and nothing was going to change, I still tried. I left an open door for Tom Boyajian for 7 years. And Tom, I have an affinity for Tom. We worked together well for a while. Gary's a good friend. Then one day, Gary, he just went sideways. It was anything Autry did, I was against. Yeah, he was against everything. He just took it, and I tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. And I said, Tom, my final conversation was, my door's always open. Please come in. Let's just try to figure this thing out. But I was convinced he was staunch, far left. And I'm convinced if I would have went in one day and said, I'm announcing I'm becoming Democrat, he had become a Republican. I mean, it got that bad. It was just... So anyway, isn't there value to just, Gary, keep trying, say, not throw up your hands and say, all right, I'm never going to get through.
Look, Alan, my perspective is I just do my job, and when I feel there's a need for a press conference, I'll call it. They've always showed up, to their credit, and I think that's because they've come to learn that when I'm going to hold a press conference, there's something important that's going to be said, and to their credit, they've always shown up. But the media is biased, and they always are. And I will give you, there are obviously journalists that do write fairly. Sometimes, I will think that Brianna Calix, of Garry, who covers for the Bee, writes a very fair story. There are other times I think it's very biased. and I've shared it with her each time when I thought it was great and when I thought it was biased. So, I try to cut people slack. She has a job to do, others have jobs to do, but to ignore the incredible bias that the media has in terms of what they report, how they report it, it's pervasive. It's no longer hidden anymore. And the reality is, from my perspective, Alan, there's serious issues going on in our country where our country's being destroyed. Some of the issues don't even get covered because they agree with it. For example, the border and what's happening at the border, or other things. And so I just feel that we're in a fight for our nation, and we have to stand up. Whether you're on the left or the right, people have very different perspectives.
But as a counterpoint, we have a majority Democrats on our city council. Right? We got Garry, the lone Republican. We got a few moderates, but 6 Democrats, 1 Republican. We get more media scrutiny than the Board of Supervisors any given week. It doesn't matter whether it has to do with the policy.
And the board is mostly conservative, right?
It is mostly conservative. And so I hear what you're saying, Garry, but at the same time, I think you make the argument the other way too. Why are 6 city council members getting most of the scrutiny here in the community that happen to be Democrats?
See, this is something that if you guys could carry this further and have a media summit, get it out. There's some value. I tell you, there was great value in just, I call it truth on the table for 8 years. Georgianne White, who's now the city manager, was my chief of staff. Thanks to Garry. It's one of the greatest recommendations you ever made. Thank God.
One of the greatest appointments I ever made.
Georgianne worked for Garry, and then Garry was so gracious after,
after
became mayor.
Alan beat me up.
No, hey, that was eight-person field. That's like 5 shows in there. But just looking them eye to eye, it's easy to delete a tweet, an irate tweet. It's easy to, even on an Instagram or whatever, or even on a telephone. But you get face-to-face with people, and you really dig down deep, and you really call them out on this thing. You say, because both the media and elected officials say their fundamental principle is to watch out for the people, to do what's best for the people. So if you take that tenet and believe it, as difficult as it may be, as much as the media says these politicians are self-serving, they don't care about the people, as much as the politicians say the media just cares about the next headline, is there some way you can make just a trajectory change to whether it, and I can see how an elected official, believe me, would want to, do a Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm just showing up in this thing so I don't get fined, going through the motions. So that's my question. I would urge, as the independent here, that you bring in the media, make them be the one that leaves the table. Make them be the one that does not return the phone call. Oh, I've heard of all these reports. Well, I've tried to get Harry, Tyler, whatever. They don't return the phone. Flip it on them. They won't like it to begin with because they don't know what to do with it. And you hold them accountable. Hold them, and it's never happened. Well, our job as the media is to hold politicians accountable. Well, You know what? You've really corrupted that in many ways, not making it a political thing, just in all aspects. You mentioned it. No coverage of the supervisors, more coverage in your mind.
True.
Well, who's holding you accountable? Is it people that don't subscribe to you anymore? How about the politicians saying, hey, we may not like it, but we're in the same boat together if you believe, and you in the statement, we're here for the people. And call them on that and see who rises up and who doesn't. Let me ask you this. We're not going to take a break. We'll tell Guillermo sell some soap next week. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the city priorities. And Tyler, I'll start with you and go to Garry. A lot of stuff needs to be done in every city. Roads break up. You got crime pretty much in every city. I don't know one area that really has crime under control, whatever the heck that means. As long as you have one person being murdered, you don't have it under control. What are the top 3? The top 2. And if you want to go 3 on it, go ahead. But what's your top 2 priorities that you feel need to be focused on City of Fresno on behalf of people?
Might be a surprise to you. I don't think the issues have changed since you've served in public office. I think.
We had no problems. I cleaned it all up.
Those 8 years were.
Oh, we cleaned it all. It was Camelot.
I think the same pervasive issues that you faced as mayor are the same ones that we're still struggling with today, and that's crime and homelessness. Crime and homelessness are still.
We didn't have much homelessness back then. Remember?
Yeah, I do. That's right.
I don't know, and I don't know what happened. I have my theory, but go ahead, Tyler. The crime and homelessness are the top. You got a third one tucked in there?
I would say, very broadly speaking, infrastructure. We live in an aging city. The area I represent is largely central Fresno. I've taught when I was campaigning, knocking on doors.
Yep. Worked your butt off.
Folks who moved near the airport when that was North Fresno, and you could only see orchards beyond that. And the time they've lived there, they went from North Fresno to living in Central Fresno. And they've seen a lot of the dilapidation of streets and sidewalks, trees decaying. There's no sense of pride.
That is the forgotten region, isn't it? Everybody talks about South Fresno, the North Fresno, kind of like the economic system. You got the elite, the billionaires. You've got those stricken with poverty, and the middle class gets no attention or no help whatsoever.
They're stuck in the middle, right? Yeah. And a lot of folks feel like they've been forgotten as more resources go to the newer parts of town. And their streets, I have one in my district that we're paving right now, hasn't been paved in 55 years. It's just unacceptable. And when the city is not willing to invest back into those communities, they don't have that sense of pride in their neighborhood. They're less likely to maintain their lawns, or might be more likely to litter because the community around them looks like it's falling apart.
Garry?
Well, I would agree that homelessness and crime continue to be the top issues. And crime is a big issue in the state because of Prop 4757, AB 109, opening up the prisons, having a no bail policy. You can't have those kinds of things go on, those policies, without crime increasing. The criminals know that there's no accountability. They know as soon as they're arrested, they're released. So this is an ongoing thing. And until we fix that in Sacramento, we're going to struggle with it on a local level. The homelessness is an ongoing issue, but I think there's been a lot of success. But I think we've had success in the short-term way. Long-term, we're not going to build our way out of homelessness with, shelters and things of that sort. Again, laws have to change. So there's a lot that has to still happen. And I think this council does address it, does work on it.
Well, that's a very interesting subject because I'm doing a documentary and working 2 years working with the homeless out on the streets, nitty-gritty, street-level stuff. And there's these theories that you have going in doing something like this. Preconceived notions. And I would say 50 to 60% of those preconceived notions were correct about mental health aspect of it. The other 40, 50% was really against, theories are great, having a thesis, but then you have to eventually apply it to reality or it's no good. And then that reality tells you whether you're right or wrong. And what we found out is there's a big difference between homelessness and street people. Because the key, people don't want to see people out on the street, sleeping out in the street, panhandling, that sort of thing. The thing is, we found we have had a lot of quote-unquote homeless people that had shelter. They had a place to go. They'd tell me right out, Mr. Autry, Mayor, I got to get up and I got to go to work. I work. This is my work, panhandling. I got to get money. They all got a cell phone. They're out on the streets. Mm-hmm. So can you really, you have to kind of separate that, I found out. If you're going to measure a decrease in homelessness and success in homelessness by the number of homeless that you don't see on the street, people you don't see on the street in the tent cities, I don't think it's ever going to happen. That's why you still have it now. You have the people on the streets that, as I said, many of them, not all of them, but many of them have a place to go. So do we not still have a lot to learn about this deep, horrible issue of homelessness? And maybe are we realizing that mental health is the key component if you don't address that? And inevitably, you're going to have to take people off the street against their will if they don't know sunlight from darkness and completely, because we met many hundreds and hundreds that are severely mentally ill. They have no family. They have no, guardian. And back in the day, the state would step in and help them, get them off of the crack and the street drugs and on to real drugs that could help them. Lithium is just to name a few. They have some great psychotropic drugs that can calm the mind. Because what they do, they just do anything to keep those voices stopped in their head. So are we not putting off the inevitable? I think unless you have that, unless you say, listen, as a city, you can't sleep here. We have a place for you to go, and not be fearful of the ACLU descending on them like they did with me, and say you're taking away these people's rights when you're actually giving them a chance to have a life.
I think our biggest issue as a society, not Fresno or California, but the United States, has been trying to fix homelessness, trying to cure it when it's already manifested itself, instead of trying to treat it at its source. We try to deal with folks experiencing homelessness once they've already been homeless for a while. Get them into a house, let's try to treat them, instead of really just focusing our resources on folks early on, before a drug addiction has occurred, before mental health has manifested itself.
No, but Tyler, great subject. Here's the problem. We got so many people into a treatment facility. The problem was treatment wasn't mandatory. They didn't go to it. They got a roof over their head, but they didn't go to the treatment. They didn't go to the counseling. They just kept doing what they were doing. So doesn't that treatment, Gary, have to be mandatory?
There has to be accountability. And the problem...
Before you get the house from the city, you got to go to treatment.
It used to be that if you were doing drugs on the street, you went to court, and you either went into a drug treatment program or you went to jail. Okay, that doesn't exist. They got rid of that. So, again, it comes down to accountability. You're accountable in your life. I'm accountable. Tyler's accountable in his life. We're accountable to people and to society. Living on the street and being allowed to live on the street shouldn't be allowed. Because, first of all, it's not humane to allow people to just live on the street. Secondly, you shouldn't be allowed to do drugs wherever you want to do them. But, Alan, we also, when you were mayor, before you were mayor, and after you've been mayor, the state is handing out, quote, free, but they're never free. We're paying for it, needles every Saturday outside Roding Park to drug addicts. We give out over 1 million needles per year. Why do we do that? What's the message when we're doing that?
Let's let Tyler. You had a.
Well, I hear Gary.
Your thoughts
I mean,
on that?
People shouldn't be allowed to sleep on the streets. Okay, so then where are we going to put them then? I believe in a housing first approach. It sounds like you guys maybe do not, but
I do.
Well, if
but I believe it has to be coupled with treatment. That's my stance. You go ahead.
And I agree with that. I disagree with the notion that folks should get treatment and get all the help they need while still experiencing homelessness before they're offered housing.
No,
I think that's completely backwards.
I agree. See, that's where folks we have things like this, folks, and I agree with Tyler. Give them the roof. I'm all for that. But what we found, the reality we found for almost 2 years working with the homeless out on the street, is they would say, they've told me many times, if I was made to go, Mayor, I'm still coming, he says, I would, but I'm just not going to unless I'm made to. And like Garry said, a judge used to judge back in the day, a kid would get out of line so many times. I said, listen, you either straighten up or join the military.
Or go to jail.
And it's almost like the tough love is the best love that you could give. And it's what many of the homeless, I would venture to say, judging from my 2 years, which is quite a long time dealing with them, that the majority would want that. Somebody would say, okay, to keep this home, I've got to talk to this drug counselor. I can't do crack in my room and bring other folks in there. But so anyway, did you have?
I think that is all. No, I think that is all intermingled. It's one thing to temporarily house somebody, but if you want to create an opportunity for this individual to be permanently housed,
see that's the thing.
Right.
I call the present policies Kevorkian politics in terms of the homeless. Remember that Dr. Kevorkian used to help you commit suicide?
Dr. Death.
He had that. You know, we look at them, we say, gosh, they're so far gone, they're living out in the street. They're going to die. So let's just make their inevitable death as comfortable as possible. You don't think about the transformation of souls that could take place. I'm just thinking generally what's out there. I know there's individuals that you go down and Thanksgiving, you'll feed the homeless there and you'll get the photo op. Not you guys in particular, just politicians. And you'll stop and like me, I'll give them $20. Part of me saying they're dead, irretrievable. They're so far gone that they'll never have a chance to come back. But what you're talking about is you don't give up on people. I mean, they take stray dogs off the street because it's inhumane to let a dog run wild out there. They take it to a kennel. They have no-kill shelters. Yet we let people kill themselves out there. And as Garry said, give them needles. And we've never had a program, a pilot program, maybe it's something for Fresno, to say, look, we're going to take this housing. We have a big heart. We love you so much. We love you so much that we're going to insist that you take this treatment because it's good for you. It'll give you a shot at a life, not just slow down your inevitable death, let you exist on this planet for a few more years, months.
Well, I think there needs, hey, I agree with you to a large respect, but hey, the city could provide the housing. We need more folks at the county level to step up that actually oversee mental health, behavioral health, public health. They're responsible for those, and we do what we can on the city side, but it really requires a partnership. I talked about how everybody is complicit in the health of our community, the political health, otherwise. It takes everybody stepping up.
It does. It takes a village to raise a child, doesn't it, Garry?
Well, I don't know.
Can you quote Hillary Clinton?
That's right. Hillary Clinton said that. And if she said it, I disagree.
Okay.
I don't even know what the statement is. I just disagree.
No, you guys, I tell you, this is great here. Listening to both of you make a lot of sense, a lot of truth, what you're both saying, differences that you're working out. And if I was looking at Fresno politics right now, you two guys leading the charge, I'm telling you, I would feel very good about the city. And people need to be able to feel good in these crazy times, that their leaders are working through their differences. Gary's going to still have his press conference when his things means deeply to him. Your principles mean deeply to you. And that's okay, what the country was based on. But here, and I'm not picking on Gavin Newsom, but to me, what I experienced in 8 years with the state of California, which has a vice grip on you guys, in particular homelessness. So we can't do it with the funds generated here. You could do a homelessness tax in India. Not going to work, right?
Agreed.
It's enormous amounts of money. So the state has to return more money of our tax dollars. Here's what I learned. The state, we're like the side dish that wasn't ordered, Central California. They listened to Northern California, Southern California, and Gavin Newsom in that governor's office is no different. I like Gavin Newsom as a person, decent guy. Worked with him on several committees that Schwarzenegger appointed us to when I was mayor of Fresno and he was mayor of San Francisco. Philosophically and politically on things, we have a lot of differences. I agree with. But an event happened, which I think is indicative of how they treat Fresno and why Fresno it must, in terms of the state and the federal government, not go looking for a fight, but you better damn sure be willing to fight when these policies come down that clearly continue this decades-old strategy of leaving the Central Valley behind in every aspect of funding, priorities, what have you. We're the hands that feed the world, and they don't count that. I'm just telling you on another show, I'll tell you some instances, particulars about office holders up there. Burton was one of them, they think the San Joaquin Valley should be a wildlife preserve. Sincerely, that sounds so absurd, but there's no room for an agricultural center. The third world countries is the future of our nation's farms, not Central California. And that's very, very, very dangerous. And exemplifies that and emblematic, that was a recent thing that happened with Mayor Dyer and the governor. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. The governor came out and said, we're going to give X amount of dollars back to the cities for homeless programs, right? Now, then, from what I understand, he didn't like the progress or lack of on that issue. So he decided, hey, I'm giving away a lot. My reserve's going down. I'm going to keep that money because you guys aren't doing anything. Mayor Dyer goes, hey, let me have a meeting with him. He goes and meets with him. He decides to give, what, $6 million? $6 million. Now, I know that's not much that was promised before. So follow this. The guy says, I'm going to give you the money. He arbitrarily, without really reviewing all the plans around the cities of this state, he couldn't do it. Didn't have a staff to do that. But arbitrarily just says, I don't like it. I'm taking it back. So Jerry goes in. He's able to get him to give some of it back. And now Gavin Newsom is a hero. And Jerry Dyer is a hero. And I would say, no way. You go back and say, you promised us this money. And you rally all the other mayors like we did in the League of Cities to take on the state, which we did and got Proposition 1A passed. You said, you promised this. And now you take it back and you give us a fraction of what you promised, and we're supposed to be happy and say thank you. I mean, if you loan me, $100, Tyler, and I give you back, I'm saying I'm not going to pay you back. Well, Alan, you promised I need the money. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you back. Please, Alan, please, I need it for a family. And I give you 20 back. I said, can you say thank you to me for that, for giving you that 20 of that 100?
Well, Tyler might think that's a good deal.
Well, hey, listen.
No, but my question is, doesn't Fresno need to lead the way, not in an argumentative way that goes nowhere, Tyler, Garry, not one of these name-calling sessions but strategically taking on the state on issues, building a team, the League of Cities, get other cities and counties to sign on, and be able to stand up when they come in and do nonsense like this.
I will say, to the state's credit, they have, over the last couple of years since COVID hit, given the city of Fresno tens and tens of millions of dollars, known as Project Home Key. And we have been able to make so much progress on addressing our homeless issue that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise had it not been for those. Whether it's the Villa Inn off of Parkway Avenue, whether it's the Crossroads Inn off of Blackstone, purchasing those, turning them into temporary shelters and long-term affordable housing. We've done this with about 6 or 7 different motels now that were previously used for human trafficking. This latest incident with the governor's pledge to give more homeless dollars could have been done more gracefully. I think that we should be held to higher standards constantly, no matter what we're doing. I mean, we're still facing a homeless crisis, even though we've housed hundreds of people that were previously unsheltered 2 years ago. We could continue to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Could this have been handled better? Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, I think, Alan, you showed how to do it. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a friend of yours, but you also held him to account many times when he was willing to overlook the valley. And I remember that well, because I think that was a very strong suit of yours, that you stood strong for Fresno. And so I think that's part of what you see is, hey, great, you're helping us, but you need to follow through on more than just this modicum amount of money that you promised. And it's an ongoing issue, I think, for any mayor as well as any representative of this area, not to allow us to be ignored, because they know, the votes come from San Francisco and LA. That's where elections are won. It's always interesting, I think, from their perspective in Sacramento, what the Valley does, but they know where the base comes from.
I agree.
Fellas, do you think the elected officials here, by and large, are, if not scared of Sacramento and the repercussions that can come their way if they make a decision that may rile them up a little bit, and if not downright scared, a level of intimidation that keeps y'all silent?
Well, I will say this. Senator Wiener had brought forward a proposal to extend the bar hours open till, I think it was 4 a.m. 4 in the morning. And I opposed it. Tyler opposed it. Arias opposed it. I think really the majority of the council opposed it. And that was standing up to Sacramento.
Good deal.
And saying no. And we got rid of it. People understood we are not playing along.
And that's an example that should be highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ramification, I saw your quote, Tyler, about that. Thinking about that's a great example. Because it wasn't thought out. You think about all of the drunk driving,
of course,
the loss of life that would occur, so people can drink a few more hours,
right,
and get more and more drunk and get behind the wheel. And I think that was an example of not looking for a fight, but say, I'm willing to fight. If you're coming at me, state, and you're slugging us politically, that's going to hurt people,
right,
we're going to stand up.
But also telling Sacramento that one-size-fits-all policies do not work.
Bingo. That concept, if that's in every councilman's head and every mayor's head, and it's certainly in the people's head, that's one of those guiding principles that you can hang on to bring you together. Because you may fight like cats and dogs over here, but you got a common enemy, not people in Sacramento, the policies, whether consciously or subconsciously, that have been implemented. They may not have been intentionally put in place to hurt Central California, like the water issues. I mean, we're drying up. And we got to provide food. I mean, look at the food prices. We're shipping food in from left. You got to preserve this valley and its farming industry. And that's where I think the city council, too, and the mayor in particular, yeah, there's farms and we're in the city. But as the leaders of the biggest city in this valley, you have an extended responsibility to make water and the water fight your fight, too. Yeah. Do you agree with that?
I do agree. I 100%.
And where that works out will involve working with the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
And that's not always an easy task. Yeah, I love them on
we
there.
try. We keep trying.
Dad, you just keep trying. Well, final thoughts on this show, folks. You fellas, I can't tell you how appreciative and thankful I am for you coming on this show, because I think we've done our little bit to bring a little hope that people can work together that may have different views on different things, that are willing to come together, work together, and try to get some stuff done good for your city. We do that. There's enough of that. A lot of little bits add up to a whole lot. And if we can in some way inspire folks, that's what I'd like to do, and not trying to overblow our importance or anything, but you do what you can, your little bit, bring people together and be respectful to one another. This country really needs it, and our city needs that. Final thoughts. We got a minute 20. Jerry?
Well, I just think this coming year and the next 2 years are going to be very different. I think the personnel that have changed, with Annalisa Perea coming on, with Tyler Maxwell becoming the council president, it bodes well for less of the drama and more focus on just getting things done, although the focus has always been on getting things done. But I just think there will be less drama and less personal disrespect that has taken place.
Now, you can tell me right now. You're Miguel Arias' Secret Santa. Well, I let that out of the bag. Tyler, final thoughts here.
I appreciate this opportunity. I think you're hearing a commitment from us to work together to serve the community. Republican, Democrat, you can compromise politics. You can't compromise your values. We're going to continue to fight for what we think is right, but we're going to work better at working together.
Well, Tyler, Gary, thank you so much. Folks out there, thank you for tuning in. And, if you like this show, I'm going to ask you, I never asked you to do this before, I'm going to ask you to share this show. Put on there, share it with folks, have them share it with folks, because I feel really good about what happened in this studio for this past hour. We do our best and let God do the rest, and I think that's what we just did today. God bless, love you, and I'll see you mañana.
Who cares about the clouds if we're